Well, how do you know when you're happy? Sounds like a pretty stupid question, I guess. Or it could be a really intelligent question, I guess, depending on how it's posed. But, when I jump into these videos, I don't plan them. I don't think about what I'm going to say. So this is why when I start off, they're usually pretty slow and kind of, I'm collecting my thoughts. I've learned that, and that's a very good metaphor for happiness, in my opinion. Not over planning anything is part of what keeps me happy. And I'm going to try to explain that. A lot of folks like to know what they're doing. They like to have a set schedule. They like to know where they're going to be at a particular time, when they're going on vacation, when they're waking up, all the different things. I'm the exact opposite. I don't like plans. I don't like having structure. And that has to do with the fact that I'm very versatile. I like the variety and the chaos of just existence. But I understand that there's a certain level where I have to build build a structure in order to live with, having income and a family and a house and all these things. There have to be certain expectations met and certain timelines met, I guess, if you will. But beyond that, I don't like to make too big a plan. And when I mentioned the thing about making videos, that's a good example, because if I plan out a video and I say, okay, I want to structure it this way and I'm going to talk about this and that, then I might fall short or cut myself off. But, oh wait, no, I was supposed to talk about this or that, and then I'd end up being one of the guys that edits the video and pulls out all the sections I don't want. If there's one thing people might notice about my videos, they they never actually, except for a couple of the podcast type things I made, they generally I don't cut any sections out. I just say what I'm going to say. So I get myself into trouble even if I say something that I didn't mean or word it wrong. I get taken out of context a lot. And that's okay, because that's kind of where I'm bringing this discussion to, is what happiness is to me, is being straight up honest. And that means being fair when I'm called out, being fair when I'm told, hey, what you're saying is not true, because I know that I seem arrogant maybe to some people, but those who have confronted me with particular issues that they disagree with know that I'm very open-minded when it comes to changing my mind on something, although I will argue against it, intensely if I don't agree. But if somebody else can prove or give a point of validity to change my mind, then that brings me happiness. That's happy to me. Happiness is not denying the truth to keep myself in this deluded state. It's understanding the world around me better. It brings me to my question, really, that I wanted to pose, which is, what is baseline happiness for each person? Is there considered a happy state? Of course not. There is happiness relative to life circumstance. Happiness is a very elusive thing. I wanted to make a video separately about this, but I watched this thing earlier about addiction, and they were talking about, why are we addicted? And I'm going to make a separate video about this, but it really opened up the perspective to where if we have happiness and family in our lives, then we can be content and don't need to consume substances or, get out of our state, because we're trying to acquire a happiness that comes from the comfort of being with other people. So having other people in our life is very important. It's not just people, it's having purpose. And purpose is where the key to happiness lies. Your purpose, often people will say you have to have love to be happy, or that love is the key to life. And I've agreed with that for a long time, but I've been kind of like poking and prodding at that idea, saying, is love really necessity? Or is love a byproduct of our evolution producing oxytocin to make us more connected to our, to our loved ones and to our children, so we can raise better offspring for the perpetuation of our DNA? I don't like to break it down to materials, because, you can say nothing's really alive, nothing's really dead, as they say. That if you break down the human components to all the the actual components, the actual parts of the body, none of them are individually alive. They're all dead matter that is animated through actions and processes and enzymes. And that's a very drab way of looking at life, but my point there is that the happiness part comes from within. It's part of our consciousness, our awareness. But the love may be an inherent trait that holds us back. And I want to explain that a little further, because I think that love is one of the most amazing things. And part of being human is emotions. That means happiness and sadness. Being able to watch a movie and cry, or even just a little documentary and cry about something, and then turn around and watch a comedy and laugh. But people consider fear an emotion, okay? And fear, to me, is not an emotion. And I'm not going to go into the semantics of it or look up definitions. I just want to say that, in my opinion, fear is a reaction, but not an emotion. Fear is what keeps us from, being eaten alive. Fight or flight, produce adrenaline. But we tend to think that we can be happy sometimes, sad sometimes, and scared sometimes, as if that's an emotion that is valid and a good emotion, or something like watching a scary movie is an example. Everybody likes to be scared. I don't watch horror or scary movies anymore because they don't scare me. They never have. I can't be scared. Nothing scares me. And that's one of the... I think the only thing that really scares me is the idea of losing who I am. And that comes down to the whole question of, whether God exists and the different religions and how we attach to certain ideas. So by my realizing the one component, which is the one true fear, which is the fear of not existing, and that could be even through having dementia, that fear, when I by pulling that out from the depths, I asked myself, okay, this must be a universal fear. If there's certain things that I fear, but I don't know what baseline fear is. I don't know what baseline happiness is, but I know, based on my experience and observing others around me, that there seem to be universal fears. And when people talk about the fear of this or that, it's really the fear of death. And people have argued, well, it's not that I don't fear death, I just fear how I might die, or I might die this way, or slow and painful. We have to be honest with ourselves. It's not really the fear of dying painfully, because we've seen people dying painfully, and they often are at peace in the last moments of their life. What we're really afraid of is not taking with us what we've created. And when you've built a happiness system based on values and integrity and love of life itself and existence, which means loving death, it means loving life, it means loving birth, it means loving blacks and whites and male and female, it means not separating yourself through race, through culture, or through species, and realizing that the only things we can take are the things that are in here, in our hearts, in our minds, wherever that may be based, whether it's a projection from some ethereal realm, or whether it just be a bunch of dead matter that's animated into a human body that happened to evolve into this consciousness. We get to the point where it's not worth arguing where we came from, how old the universe is, or how it's going to end, or what foods we should or shouldn't consume, or what drugs we should or shouldn't consume, and just realize that what we're ultimately after is contentment and being happy as individuals. And the more we fight against the flow, the harder it is to really understand that. We get wrapped up in society's ideals, and we start speaking other people's ideas as our own, and repeating ourselves and telling ourselves that we're happy when we're not. So my question is, what is baseline happiness? How do you know if you're really happy like other people are happy? Just because we put on a smile and go out in public, does that really mean we're content? I would say look within and look at your stress levels. How do you sleep? Do you wake up panicky? Do you go all day happily and then wake up in the middle of the night in cold sweats, worrying about bills or worrying about life or death? These are the things that tell me if I'm really happy or not. The true contentment come at those dead, sober moments in the middle of the night or in the morning where everything comes together. And it usually happens because your brain has been processing dreams, processing your subconscious through dreams, and you may not remember the dreams, but the dreams affect you strongly because there's something that it's telling you. So if you're having bad dreams, that might be a sign that you're not truly happy, not living within your true means. And all of this is just speculation on my part. I don't know. I am not a scientist. I'm not a biologist. I'm just a guy who sits here and goes by my intuition and as well as my education. I don't just go by, how I feel. I use a little bit of wisdom to it, because I could say, if I take this substance, it makes me connected with God. Or I could say, well, if you take this substance, it activates a part of the brain that's similar to prayer, which makes you think that way. I don't have to delude myself to be happy. I just have to be honest. The question is there a point where it's okay to lie to yourself to remain happy? And this would be the delusion of faith. I shouldn't say delusion, this would be faith. Faith in something that we can't explain or understand because it brings us a happiness or an understanding. And I think that's up to each individual to decide. Faith is not arguable in a scientific method, and this is why my faiths, the true things that I believe, and I guess these are the only, I could lay out the very few things that I really believe are true and universal that will make us happy. One of them is honesty and integrity, being fair with each other. Regardless of whether or not that's a human trait or that guilt comes from the programming of thinking we should be honest. The fact is, if we're dishonest and we're hurtful to other people, we suffer inside because of it. I don't know a person I've ever met who didn't, but I can't live in another person's mind. This is just going by observation. You hear about people on their deathbed who are saying, if I just would have loved more and I wouldn't have worried so much about money and material things. So that's the one key, is just, being honest, being fair, being truthful. And another one is working towards something great, having purpose. Purpose is a major important part in people's happiness. It doesn't matter if your purpose is merely to be a garbage man or